Welcome to Shively Shoulders. This is our post-city election special, so to speak. Patrick, were you surprised at the results?
Your Honor, it takes no imagination to understand that local government took a quantum leap forward on Tuesday. I was not surprised. All over town, there are wine and cheese parties being held right now celebrating.
It's Shively and Brie.
Shively and Brie. What we understand in our party is if you give the Republicans enough rope, they will. I was not surprised.
The sad thing about this election, I think both parties would agree, 20% turnout. That's not very strong.
Well, you know, those that want to have a voice and want to be heard and want to complain ought to be, they're the ones who voted. Anybody else, keep your mouth shut for the next 4 years.
We have with us today the
County chairs.
County chairs of both the Democrat Party and Republican Party going to sit down and tell us why it happened. And
do we have plenty of tissue for Mike Duckworth? We'll be back in just a minute to meet both of our county chairs. Welcome back, loyal 5 million viewers. We have a good show for you tonight. Seated to my left is Cheryl Schultz, Democratic County Chair. To her left, Mike Duckworth, Republican County Chair. All of you know, if you're watching this show, that there was a mayoral election last Tuesday, and we are here to talk about it with the two-party chairs. Welcome to Shively Shoulders.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to
Mike,
be here.
we're going to let you start. Tell us, in your view, we'll let both of you, what happened?
Was there an election? Well, I don't think there's any secrets that this was an election that we felt like we should have done better. But it didn't turn out that way. The people have spoken, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to look to the next election and go from there. But as far as what happened, I think there's a number of different variables that enter into it. And I've had people say, well, they want to blame it on Trump. They want to blame it on Congress. They want to blame it on the state. There's just a number of places to put blame. And, you know, we're big boys and girls, and we just didn't get it done this time.
Cheryl, in your view, dim landslide. Did you foresee that? What do you think happened?
No, I did not foresee that. I was quite pleasantly surprised, but still, I did not see that coming at all. I know that our candidates worked very hard. We had knocked on over 10,000 doors. We had called over 5,000 people, and we'd had a coordinated campaign. We were all running as a team and together, so I think that helped our effort a lot.
Proof's in the pudding.
you know, Bob Orr once said, when Republicans lose an election, it's because they had a lousy chairman. When they win an election, they say, well, we had great candidates. Chairman can never win. But, Mike, Republicans had good candidates. Both sides had great candidates.
I think that's true. We had a collection of young folks, veterans, incumbents, just a little bit of everything. And like she said, we did our walking, we did our advertising, we did our calls. We raised probably twice as much money in the mayor's race as the Dems did. And I think with Mayor Winnecke stepping aside, Natalie did, I felt like, a great job. She was a classy candidate that kind of held on to the issues. But I guess some folks just felt like it was time to...
Let me talk about one of the most obvious predictions I've heard from a lot of people. And maybe it came true. Maybe it's part of the reason. If you look at the numbers, Stephanie, 49, Natalie, 39, the Libertarian candidate, 11.
11.
Don't you think the Libertarian candidate took votes away from Republicans?
Well, I don't see how you could disagree with that. I don't know what faction that is. Well, the people have said, well, people on the far right are disgruntled with party politics. People on the far left are upset, and those are the people that you're working against. Well, I don't know. I mean, if you watch the debates, if you looked at the resumes of the three people running, I thought it was clearly a two-person race. Now, we did bring up a residency issue, and we still think we're right about that. And I don't think he ever really answered to it. He went to his attorney, which you guys understand, of course. But that had left the yard already, and it was tough to do that. But I don't know. I just don't know if what people were looking for. I think that's part of the problem.
Cheryl, Bill Clinton wins when Ross Perot drains 7-8% from George H.W. Bush. People said just what the judge said, do the math. The Libertarian swung the race to Stephanie. You buying that?
I think it had an impact on the mayoral vote, but it didn't seem to have an impact on the city council races. Yes, obviously, typically I think a third-party candidate will take about 5% of the vote, so 11% is unusual.
Mike, you know, I think she makes a great point. The city council races, Jonathan Weaver's a 3-term incumbent, and it's still, the Dems seem to sweep in, so the Libertarian piece doesn't explain that. My view is, we went through a Rick Davis, Jonathan Weinzapple party division. My view, sort of looking from the outside, is we have a lower turnout because the Cheryl Musgrave people stayed home. What do you think about that?
Well, that may have been a factor as well. And, you know, in politics and government, as you know, you're not going to make everybody happy. You're going to pick up some barnacles as you go. People aren't going to agree with everything that you do. Our party had a very contentious, I felt, primary. And it really surprised me. You talk about the mayor's race surprising someone. That surprised me. I thought Natalie was going to be successful, but not to the extent that she was.
The reason I would discount your Musgrave theory is the fact Natalie's margin of victory in the primary was so big, I can't believe there are that many Republican voters that were going to stay home that would have an effect.
Yeah, and none of this needs to discount the fact that I think Stephanie Terry was a wonderful, attractive candidate with governmental experience. When you talk about resumes, Natalie suffered from the fact that she'd never been elected to anything. And Stephanie has been a successful candidate for county council. So yeah, I don't want to discount that fact. But there just seemed to me in a mayoral race that the division in the Republican Party, which still exists, had to have had some kind of an effect.
And I can't argue with that, but I will say this. If you look across Indiana, if you look at your major cities, your urban areas, Democrats. Indianapolis, Democrat.
Right.
South Bend, Democrat.
That's those wine and cheese parties I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We had a good night.
So, but look at the demographics of those folks voting. And if you go out into the counties,
Sure.
you know, there was a 2-to-1 advantage for straight party voting in the city. In the county, there's like a 3-to-1 for Republicans.
Yes.
So, you know, those are a lot of factors to kind of throw into the hash and see what cooks up. But the bottom line is this, you know, you try to learn from these things. Trends and voters are changing. Anyone that takes a voter for granted is not going to do well. And so we're going to learn from this. We've got a county and a state race coming up, and that state race is going to be something with 6 people running for governor.
Let me ask you that. What is the 2023 election results? What does this portend for what could happen in 2024?
Well, I think you might see more libertarians. You might see independents. You might see others saying, well, this guy did this, maybe we ought to get in and mix it up. We saw it a little bit during the school board race where folks that weren't really Republicans or Democrats that had different kinds of ideas jumped in. That's fine. That's America. You know, you have to, if you're going to run, you have to be able to sell yourself to the point to where, you know, you're going to beat all comers. Now, I will say this for Natalie and for our group. I don't know that they could have worked any harder. And when you work that hard, it's really tough. And I think Cheryl will tell you the same thing. It's tough to get candidates nowadays.
And I want to salute you both. Les and I had the pleasure of sitting through every
And
contested.
it was a pleasure.
It was. Every city council candidate who had an opponent sat right here where you're sitting. And I marveled at the fact that we had a diverse, great, representative bunch of candidates. That's not always true. So I want to ask you, Cheryl, with a dim sweep like that, if you run somebody in the 5th, do you have a shot at Kaler Lindsay? Or am I saying that right? Angela Kaler.
As long as there's not a relative from the Shetler family or the Kaler family, they maybe have a prayer.
I mean, we used to have that seat. Jack Korn sat in the 5th
Right.
at one time. So do we win that one if we have a candidate?
Well, I don't know. Honestly, we chose not to run anyone in that ward because we did not feel that we had enough Democrats in that ward that could carry a candidate through. We changed a few things with redistricting. And so sometimes you have to step back and say, do you want to spend more time and money on a candidate that might not be successful, or do you want to go with the candidates that you have, put your time and energy in that, and the candidates you have already decided would be a good choice? We were very intentional. I think we ran, the 10 candidates that we had running, 4 were women, 3 were people of color. We wanted to be very representative of the city. We had, veterans. It was a good mix of candidates, and I think it worked well. And sometimes you just don't have to always run somebody for every election. I know that everybody would like to think that we would, but I think Mike would agree. Sometimes it's difficult to find someone, and then you've got to assure them, yes, you'll have our support financially and people on the ground. And sometimes that's difficult to do, and I don't want to make false promises to anyone either.
You don't run anybody in the 4th and the 6th, same explanation?
Well, difficult to find candidates that are willing, these people that want to run do their research, and they see what's happened in the past, and we don't want to set them up to fail, and they don't want to get into something that's overwhelming. But you brought up something that will probably take another show sometime.
Well, let's do another. Go ahead.
But changing the lines. I don't know in any community where that's fair, where the sitting body gets to change their own demographics. And that happened, I think, more so in one race or in one area than it did others. And I don't think there's any secrets that the city council hired a Democratic op group to put that together. I think we need to look at that. The other thing is fundraising. A thing I'm going to bring up with Cheryl will tell you, I think I already have, 2 things. I don't think we ought to be voting in schools. I think it's too dangerous. And the second thing is, I think Act Blue needs to explain themselves. Act Blue is basically a place where Democrats can donate money, but they're not putting names and addresses and those kinds of things. When red, we do. We treat it like a PAC. So there's some disparity there. Did that make any difference in the win-loss? Probably not. But those are things that we need to look at, and I think as a community, we want a fair election, and we want it handled so everybody has a chance.
Cheryl, looking at 2024, I'm sure your phone's ringing off the wall. You've been very successful this election. Democrats statewide have not been that successful. Are they calling you in to help them recruit candidates to run for legislative seats?
No.
They should.
I mean, we're already looking ahead to 2024 locally with the county election. We're engaged in that.
What kind of response are you getting?
Oh, we're getting fairly good response.
Tuesday night didn't hurt, did it?
It did not hurt. It was very, very helpful. We already have a candidate running for governor, Jennifer McCormick.
Right.
We'll put a lot of effort into her election. So with the statewide candidates, the state party usually focuses on that
State party
more.
ought to listen to you and use your playbook.
And we got to, I have to smile to myself. Mike's points about redistricting and dirty money, not dirty money, but untraceable money. After Citizens United, that has been the Republican formula for success. Gerrymandering and
Yes.
big money from the
Yes.
Koch family under whatever guise it gets there. And the state of Indiana, we have the mayor now in Evansville, Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, South Bend, Terre Haute, New Albany, but we can't win a statewide election. I can't figure that out.
Well, whatever we do, we have the blessing of the Supreme Court.
You do. You do. A blessing indeed. Well, I think let's talk about poor turnout. The judge made that point in the opening comments, and the fact is, what was Stephanie's total? Under 10,000 votes? Was it 9,000 to 8,000, something like that?
total.
18,000 total, yeah.
I mean, 18,000 total votes for mayor in a city that probably votes 90,000?
82,000 registered voters.
82,000. What do you think? What's
That's
that
in
about?
the city, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That's
city.
in the city, yes.
The city.
What do you think that's about?
I don't know. It's very frustrating that people do not exercise their right to vote. we are so fortunate to have that right. And you knock on doors and you talk to people, you'll often hear, I'm not interested. They don't even know that there's an election, or they feel like their vote doesn't count. And there have been so many elections in recent history where they've drawn a name out of a hat because the race is tied or somebody's won by 4 or 5 votes.
There's a tie in Oakland City.
Yes.
Really?
Yes, and it's so you try to explain, everybody's vote does count. And I wish more people would participate.
Some political pundits have opined that the reason for low turnout in city elections is they're off-year elections. Why not have the elections for mayor, city council in a presidential year?
Well, next year, we've got countywide elections, statewide, and a federal election. So it's already a full ballot. Next year's election will be all hands on board.
So you think they make city elections get overlooked if they would move it to even years?
Possibly. It would just be a lot of candidates to deal with.
What's the federal
Presidential election.
next year? Presidential, and Lapdog Larry Bouchon will still be on the table.
That's your congressman you're talking about.
Lapdog Larry will be on the ballot. Now, can you get us a candidate who won't vote with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Gates from Florida and for speakers and things like that?
He's not of that ilk.
He is a lapdog that's never done a thing. Some Democrat needs to rise up. Let's raise some money and get Lapdog Larry Bouchon out. Nobody could pick him out of a lineup now.
Pat, if he's doing such a bad job, how come Democrats cannot recruit a candidate to run against him?
Because your dark money and your gerrymandering has made it so difficult. The shape of the 1st congressional district, the 8th congressional district, looks like somebody's broken leg.
Never heard that during Brad Ellsworth's
When McCloskey was the congressman of the 8th district, the 8th district ran all the way up to Porter County.
That had something to do with your incumbent hitting a tree with his car.
And we know Porter County, close to Lake County, which is what? What kind of orientation there?
No, but we're going to have to get a shovel in there. He's digging up all these dead bodies around
So, how do you pick up the pieces? How do you go from here? You're the big winner. All you can do now is lose, and you got another election in 12 months. And you got to find people that says, hey, we can recover from this and we'll be ready. What have we got? Locally, we got commissioner's seat, at least one or two? Two. So the majority of the commission will be on the line. You got county council.
3 at large.
3 at large. And what else is up next?
Clerk, county clerk,
County clerk.
surveyor.
And we ought to say she
coroner.
finally counted the votes reasonably quickly this time. What happened? Did they send some Democrats in to help her?
No, but it was great. We could actually start opening ballots on Saturday and not looking at the ballots, but simply tearing them open, removing staples. Preparing them, yes. Because
Looking for hanging chads.
Yes. No, it just took a lot of time, and this really did make a significant difference. They were done by 1:15 on Tuesday.
So what do you do to find candidates when they're all saying, well, we got such a butt whooping, I'm not going to waste my time?
You can't say butt whooping on public television.
You can't?
No.
We're already getting calls about county and state and federal elections because people see that, Republicans do well in those areas. But I think where we have to recover and we have to build is we have to build what we can do in the city, and we have to really start working on our candidates for 4 years now, which means that we will have people at the council meetings watching and listening and taking notes so that it is an issue-related an issue-related contest. And so, if they do well, there won't be much to talk about. But if they don't...
You say an issue-related. These races began as issue-oriented. Then it got really a little nasty towards the end.
On that team, never over here.
Oh, yes, it did. Yes, it did.
No. We took the high road the whole time.
Wait a second. There was the accusation that Natalie hadn't paid her taxes. Where did that come from?
The Libertarian.
Who was in bed with the Democrats, right?
No, see, when he steps in it, that he can correct himself now or hold me in contempt. It's not fair. I'm just telling you. I wanted to salute both Natalie and Stephanie, kept that race where it should be from day one. And even when it got bad with the Libertarian, Natalie never dipped toward, nor did we ever take those shots, did we?
No, Stephanie, when we asked her to run, when she decided to run, it was we will run a positive campaign. We will not go negative. We are going to stay above board. And we followed that throughout with all of our candidates.
And I salute you both for that, at least at that level. I know at the end, he had some money. Was it his own money, the Libertarian?
As far as we can say, I don't know if he had an act blue or not, but he had some
Or
ways.
act bad?
He had some way, and I will be looking at his campaign finance report as well. But at one time, he only had $37,000, and he had that in big signs and parade floats and all that kind of stuff that he used.
The thing that bothered me about the Libertarian candidate, and you're right, that was not from the Democrats.
It was not from us.
It was from the Libertarian. What I didn't like about his whole campaign approach, if you listen to his ads and his and statements he made, you'd think he was running against Lloyd Winnicky.
Well, it was a gotcha campaign. It was.
He did a mailer saying they were both in Centerpoint's pocket, and all that sort of thing. So he was shooting at both teams there toward the end.
True.
But, that's part of politics. You mentioned Donald Trump, Joe Biden. Democrats, abortion seems to still be a great issue in terms of dividing people and making even Republican areas vote for our team. When you talk about the next election with state and with some federal elections, do you see those kind of issues shaping local races?
I don't hear a lot about it. I really don't. I mean, I think, of course, we are very supportive of right to life, and most candidates are. There are some that join our team that, back away from that a little bit, and that's their right. But I don't see those types of issues as being something on a local level. I think they're going to fight that where the courts make decisions, and
Sure, what do
I
you
could
think?
be wrong, but I don't see that being a local issue.
Yeah, I agree. Locally, there's really not a lot that one can do regarding that issue. Those decisions are made more at the state and federal level. And so I think those are the candidates that you will see the impact on how they run in those races.
Tip said all politics are local, and when it comes right down to it, when you got a good candidate, no matter what the winds are blowing, Andy Beshear wins in a state that has Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul. I think, don't slap me, I think Lloyd Winnicky announces for a fourth term, and you'd have had trouble finding a candidate to run him. He was popular in his own right. There still could have, he never carried the council. There could have still been a landslide in the city council, but I think Lloyd Winnicky gets reelected. I think when it comes right down to it, the candidate has a lot to do with it.
And going to the Kentucky race, I think one thing Cameron did, that you'll disagree possibly, in the late stages of his campaign, he had the Trump endorsement. Mm-hmm. I don't think that helped him.
Mm-mm.
It depends on where you are as whether or not that will help you. There are very highly motivated Trump folks all around, and sometimes they get involved in these races and sometimes they don't. I don't know if that was the group that, was working against Natalie or for Stephanie. I have no idea because I don't hear much from them, to tell you the truth.
So you think maybe Lapdog Larry Bouchon will get a shot from the flank from the right? Is there anybody filing to run against him, to trump him?
Haven't heard a word about anyone wanting to oppose him. Of course, our position is that Congressman Bouchon is serving our 8th district very well.
Are we going to have a good candidate, credible candidate?
I certainly hope so.
Okay. Les, it's been a great show. We've been educated. Mike's humble, Cheryl's humble. We're both going to move on. I really want to salute both of you for the tenor of this campaign. I think it stayed up, other than there at the end when the Libertarian, but whatever. And I think, I mean this, I'll say it one more time, you recruited some great candidates.
Sure did.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
When we come back, Les and I will wrap it up, and he'll take undeserved shots at me.
You can guarantee it. Great discussion. However, I don't think you can read that much into these results as to what's going to happen in 2024. I think there's a lot of time in between. A lot of things can change.
I think you're right. Evansville's always been thought of during our whole lifetime in the city as a Democratic city. There's been exceptions. Mayor Lloyd was popular. Lloyd Winnicky was popular. But traditionally during our lifetime, the Democrats have had a hold on the mayor's office, and so maybe that still holds true. But the county races are a horse of a different color.
Well, we say that, but we have this is what, the third or fourth in a row Democrat sheriff?
Well, and we've had a long tradition. You're right. We had a long tradition in that office. And of course, Levko's in office for 5 terms, and then he's knocked off. So it'll be interesting. I don't think the Dems should rest on these laurels and believe they're going to skate. But it was a great discussion. Both of them were humble in their own appropriate ways. I think they both did a good job. And we told them, and I want to say, voters, you had some good choices. Why you didn't come out in bigger numbers is on you.
Exactly. And with 2024 coming up, the next year's election just right around the corner, it's going to be one of the most fascinating eras in politics we've ever seen, with a Republican candidate who's been indicted in how many different courts, state and federal. And how that turns out, nobody knows.
And he's still leading Biden in the polls. It was a fascinating national election, a state like Ohio, where they just elect that J.D. Vance, and it's trending, and Donald Trump carried Ohio. Yet when abortion and the legalization of marijuana are left up to the voters, they both pass overwhelming.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Pat, let me ask you a question. Now, give it your best input here.
Yes, sir.
Next year, people want to get the straight skinning and what's going on in the political movements. Where can they get that information?
On Shively and Shoulders.
Yep, I agree.
If
Well
we can
said.
all agree that easily, we could all agree at the polls and everybody would be elected unanimously. Thank you for watching. Shively and Shoulders depends upon you, 5 million viewers, for our great success.